serious, girls who have been guilted into going out with a nice guy. How did it go? He was genuinely nice and I thought I was being too picky and maybe I could see this through if I took the effort of getting to know him. But every time I offered a contradictory point of view on any generic topic of discussion, he would proceed to casually mock my appearance, attire and my personality in retaliation to my disagreement. That was the last date. Obviously. Edit. He might not have been genuinely nice. I think I once slept with the same guy. Disagree on anything? Your opinion doesn't matter because I've seen you naked. You're just my duck buddy. You're moderately unattractive right now. You have liberal views. I was completely smitten with him at the time before I realized I didn't need to take such garbage from someone like that. Edit. Typos. I was that girl who loved the bad boys. My nice guy had been my best friend for a number of years and I always knew he liked me, but I was busy chasing assholes. 9 years we were best friends and grew up together and he watched me pickle the wrong people and get hurt. Other friends kept telling me to give it a chance etc. 2 years ago he asked me to come over for dinner. It seemed fairly casual until I realized he'd asked me for Valentine's Day. I can't say I was guilted as such, but it still felt a little awkward. I was mega nervous thinking it was gonna be so awkward, but when I turned up it was fine. He'd cooked me a meal, bought flowers, a bottle of wine and chocolates and lit candles on the table. I don't drink much so he ended up getting through the whole bottle of wine because he was so nervous, but it was a lovely evening and things felt very natural, so I decided to give it a go. We're now headed towards our 2nd anniversary. Have a lovely home together. A beautiful, but evil, Egyptian malcat and couldn't be happier. Because we were friends first, we know we get on. We finish each other's sentences and never run out of conversation. Get to have one argument that goes beyond whose turn it is to wash up lol. He is genuinely the best thing to happen to me ever. Sometimes the nice guy does win. Throwaway account for this as don't want my story tracing back to me. I met him through online dating and after a couple of weeks of chatting online decided to cool things off as he was giving off a creepy, needy vibe that frightened me. He would ask about ex-boyfriends frequently and tell me that he would be good for me. Ask sexual questions without any encouragement and want to know intimate details. I forgot all about him until he sent me a random message months later and apologized for his previous behavior, which he blamed on a tricky breakup. Time passed and he seemed a new person, so I gave in and met with him. Our first couple of dates seemed fine with just a few odd comments that I should have paid attention to. Then he started questioning where I was and who I was with. But again I just foolishly ignored this. The first time, and last time, I stayed at his. We went out for a drink beforehand and he was judging me for having a couple of beers. When we got back to his I wasn't feeling up to anything sexual, so told him firmly no and went to sleep. Later that night I woke up to him on top of me. I never confronted him about this. I just pretended I hadn't woke up and made my excuses the next day before blocking him from my life. I've never told anyone this before. I just wish I'd listened to my previous instinct and keyed well away. I was in high school and figured I should give the guy a chance. Maybe I was just being snobby. Anyway, we decided to go to the movies. His older sister came along to chaperone and spent the movie sitting in my lap to make sure we didn't get up to anything funny. After the movie, I said I had to go home. Later that night, he calls me crying to confess he'd snapped a picture of me and whacked off to it. There was not a second date. Incidentally, this was when I began to have an inkling that I maybe liked girls. Not outright guilted, but more found myself in the situation and couldn't back out. Bit weird at first given the circumstances of me distinctly not wanting to be there, but things gradually got more weirder as the night went on. He made really intense eye contact and told me about how he doesn't smoke or drink. Just goes to clubs sober. Also told me about how he plans to stay in the country. He was a foreign student, but needs to settle down with someone here first. Then he told me he was really passionate. My dumbass asked passionate about what, and he just stared at me and repeated he was really passionate. It was shit, and I'm more vocal about whether or not I want to be somewhere, do something now. Guilted into having a 1-year relationship with one. He was super nice at first. And I was young and naive. He flirted. Seemed nice and honest, so I thought, what the hell? Why not give it a go? Big mistake. Realized quite quickly that he just wasn't for me. We had very different political views. Very different opinions on things. He was very degrading of me, made fun of my weight. Made me think I was fat. I was not at all. Always had a healthy BMI. Always have been sporty, but obviously being my young teenage and vulnerable self. That really crushed my self-esteem. So when I finally decided I had the gonads to say I don't wanna be with you anymore, he guilted me into staying with him. Saying you'll never find a guy who'll love you like I love you, or if you leave me I'll kill myself, and all the rest of the typical reasons a nice guy will use to guilt you into staying. In the end I ghosted him. We were supposed to meet up. But I never showed up. I changed my number. Deleted social media for a couple of years. Moved out. Never heard from him again. Which I am very pleased to say. As it turned out, he lied about just about everything. From his favorite movie to his moral opinion on bathing suits. He would not take no for an answer. If I persisted, it meant I didn't love him. He often threatened not to kiss me ever again if I didn't do this, like send nudes. Do certain sexual things. etc. He taught me that my opinion and my feelings meant nothing. Even on a basic how was your day level. At first he would ask and acknowledge my answer. Then he would ask and then immediately change subjects. As if he hadn't heard me. And then finally he stopped asking. But he was a catch. Girls never gave him the chance he deserved. They were all missing out. Went on one date. He just kept talking about how horrible most women are and how gross periods were, and vag in general was also brought up briefly. He was very masochistic and homophobic. Never talked to him again. A couple years later when I was still in college, a friend bumped into him at a party. Found him in a room blowing another dude. Went out with this guy a couple days ago. It was polite but we didn't have chemistry at all. He was super friendly and fun, so decided to still see where things could go. Went to his place to watch some TV and talk. It was fun, so decided I'd agree to a second date if asked. Started to get late and I was getting tired, so I told him I was heading home. He flipped out. Blocked my way to the door. Didn't you have fun? What's wrong? He insisted I answer his questions, and the fact that I was tired wasn't cutting it. He got more mad and pushed me against the door. After the push I got out of there and he let me leave. Blocked him everywhere and now I have bruises on my arm to remind me of the incident. Moved to another state with my sister and she made a few guy friends. One of them saw her with me and begged her to set up a date with me. I reluctantly agreed because she kept saying how sweet and nice he was. First date he kept gushing about how gorgeous I was and the fact that I was smart made it 100x better. He was going to make me his queen and take me around the world, but I have to pay for my own meal and his since he paid this time. I told him I was only interested in being friends and he begged my sister to get me to go out on another date. I declined and we moved back home and he came to visit my sister. While he was here he kept looking at me and telling my sister to just hook him up with me. It was my birthday and I kind of just rolled my eyes and was like, come on, I'll take you out too with my group of friends. At the bar. He was really into me and I was getting annoyed because he wouldn't let me relax and have fun. I told him I really only saw him as a friend, and in front of everyone he yelled at me saying what a horrible person I am for leading him on. Nothing but a who or etc. I ended up crying because it was so embarrassing. My guy friends wanted to go talk to him after they heard what happened. My sister ran up to me and told me to go make him happy again. He came down to see me and this is how I was treating him. I just went home and the next morning my sister told me how sorry that guy was and he wanted me to come say bye to him at the airport. Needless to say I didn't. After a few years of tepid friendship, something was always a bit off about him. But I thought he was such a nice guy and I was just being a judgy itch. Plus he always claimed to be so in love with me. I agreed to a few dates with my friend. On one date, We went out with a whole group of couples to this state park a few hours away. And during the ride home, I dozed off. I woke up to him groping me under my clothes. And when I told him off, he twisted it around like I was being ridiculous and imagined his hand under my bra. Like, we're on a date. Why was I being so weird? etc. When I told him I had to cancel our 4th date because I'd gotten grounded after accidentally setting the kitchen on fire, he punched me. Mostly in the face. Punched me. He spent the rest of high school periodically stalking me, my sisters, ranting and raving to literally everyone about how I just didn't understand and he loves me. He's just so emotional with his true love for me that sometimes he acts without thinking. He's not like those other guys that would make sexual comments about my appearance. Why did I have to be such a Stacy? He's the best friend I ever had until I ruined it all by willfully misunderstanding and refusing to hear him out or give him closure. On and on. What a nice guy. Guess he tried to break into my bedroom window out of love and concern. Huh. All my friends said a guy from our group of friends was very nice. Even though I felt like he was creepy. Went out once. Thought I'd give it a chance. To be nice. Regretted it immediately. He asked me what I thought of being in a relationship with him. And when I said no, I didn't want that, because I wasn't very interested and we had only been friends before this, he said he was disappointed with my answer and expected something more worthy of him. He said that saying no was disrespectful. Big yikes. We met once after that because he surprise visited me a few months later. He asked me to ruffle through my hair because he wanted to feel my scalp. Treated me like a dog and wanted me to sit next to him so he'd be closer to me. He also thought it was a great idea to mention that he sometimes hears voices in his head and has dreamt of killing people. I rushed him out of my apartment onto the street. I just wanted him to be gone. I checked my keys 5 times to see whether he took any. I've had to see him a couple times since then. And he is the most creepy, socially inept person I've ever met. He's so aggressive and impulsive. I am truly afraid he will grape or kill someone someday. And I'm still afraid that that person could be me. Edit. This blew up. Yes. He still is in my circle of friends. For some reason my guy friends laughed it off and don't see him as much of a threat to anyone. Let alone me. I avoid him as much as I can. And never see him in groups of less than 5 people. We were good friends in high school and most of college. And I genuinely thought he was a good guy. He had a lot of typical nice guy beliefs. But I thought he was pretty harmless. He confessed when we were 20 that he had feelings for me since high school. But I was in a relationship. He accepted that and we continued being friends. About a year later when my relationship ended, I was devastated. And he invited me out with a group of friends for some drinks to get my mind off of it. He told me I could crash at his house afterwards since it was closer to the city. And I really thought the whole thing was a sweet gesture when I was feeling really low. He didn't really drink much because he was driving us back. But I definitely had quite a few to get my mind off the breakup. We were friends. I thought I was safe with him. He let me pass out in his bed. And he took the couch. I woke up a few hours later to him feeling me up in my sleep and trying to unbutton my pants. I screamed and pushed him off. And it took like 30 seconds of struggling for him to actually get off of me. He didn't say anything. And just left the room. I just laid in bed awake 4 hours trying to process what had happened. He wasn't there when I left the next morning. And sent me a text later on that day just saying, "Sorry, things got out of hand last night." I couldn't believe he had referred to his attempted sexual assault as things getting out of hand. I didn't respond. And for the next year or so, I was busy anytime he tried to meet up. I never confronted him because it broke my heart that he did that to me. He eventually moved to another city after college. TLDR, he knows what he did. And he wasn't a nice guy. Most were just awkward. But I do remember one that got horrifying. I don't remember quite how we got on the topic of conversation. But in an attempt to get me to see that feminism was bunk. He asked me, would you rather be raped or sent to jail for 20 years? Night ended pretty quick after that. I'm still not quite sure what he was going for there except proving the opposite of his argument. He brought flowers to my dorm. Everyone I lived with saw him walk in with a huge, inappropriate for a first date bouquet and assumed we were a couple. He made small talk with a few people as he waited on me in the lobby, later adding them on Facebook since he would definitely be seeing them again. He did a lot of things you're supposed to do. Opened the car door, paid for dinner, etc. But I could feel that underneath it all I was accumulating a debt. Like now I owed him. My gut feeling was right, as after that he started harassing me, letting me know that I owed him a second date. Actually, that I owed him a second date. Or more. Gross. Eventually I just stopped responding to his texts. I realized afterwards I should have trusted my gut and avoided him in the first place. So I'll take the blame for that. He spent several years convincing me to go out with him. Wouldn't take no for an answer. When I finally gave in it was okay at first, but I definitely resented him. I wanted to scream at him to shut up whenever he talked. He used to guilt me into sending him nudes. And if I didn't or took too long or forgot, he'd call me screaming, yelling about how he needed the photos because he's got needs and was stressed out at school. I almost lost my friends because he never let me see them. Looking back, the whole relationship felt very Stockholm Syndrome. If you're reading this, dude, duck you abusive ducker. This guy had been my friend for years, but he made no secret of the fact that he really wanted to get in my pants. He even drew fan art of me, the naked kind. But I was a loser, and aside from being a little weird about his crush, he was nice to me and didn't try anything. So after a while a friend convinced me to give him a chance since I'd been single for a while. So we set up a date. The night of. He cancels. Then ghosts me. Then a year later, after I'm with my Sue and having not contacted for a year, he showed up at my house with a cheap Valentine's basket. I wasn't home, so he left it with my mom. Radio silence continues until I get a job at a store near his house. He'd show up all the time and try to talk, but wouldn't contact me outside of showing up at my work. After I quit that job I never heard from him again. It was really weird. He was the nicest guy I've met. Super sweet and charming and all that good shit. Good at acting nice, sweet, and charming. That is, I've always noticed how self-centered, guilt-tripping, and manipulative he was, but hoped he'd grow out of it. He did not. Then after so much psychological abuse from him, I finally just snapped. Then, from his perspective, I somehow ended up being the person who guilt-tripped him and abused him, and I had so many red flags. Go figure. Badly. Seriously. It was the worst relationship of my life. He was the nice guy who was always there for me. etc. etc. Until we started dating. Then I saw his mother more than I saw him. When I did see him, he pressured me constantly for sex. And he cheated on me. I think he just built me up in his mind so much that it became more about winning me than actually liking me. So once he got me, he had no reason to be so nice anymore. I didn't date him, but he and I were close friends in college. He was also very good friends with my boyfriend at the time. I met him through my boyfriend. We used to chat for hours at night, either online or in person, and he was such a fun person to be around. One night, he sent me a long letter, confessing his interest in me. I was really surprised, because I was young and also hadn't seen any of the traditional flirtatious signs. No sexual innuendos. No coy touching. No lingering eye contact. I said I really cared about him as a friend, but wasn't interested in him that way. And I also pointed out that I was dating his friend. He sent a torrential wave of messages at that point, calling me shallow, saying I only like my boyfriend, again, and his friend, for his appearance, that I was a fraud, ungrateful, etc. Good times.